Hi, so we are on chapter 17 called Follow Through. Now, in this chapter, they start off with giving two different definitions of follow up, which means to do something that's been done before or repeating the same thing that's been done before. And the second definition is follow through. And follow through pretty much means, let me go back here. Follow through is completing a process or action and taking it to its fullest conclusion. So basically, that means doing something and completing it fully, wherever that goes, wherever that takes you, the conclusion. So I thought those two definitions were insightful because people always say follow up, but it's actually follow through to complete the task entirely. Now, in this chapter, it's called follow through. And basically, what it says is follow through means to give something of value. So in the chapter, again, they sort of repeat a little bit of the giving value. So it means to, or creating value, it means to connect them with someone that you know, that they can do business together. Let's say you're out in the bookstore, right? And you think of a person that may benefit a particular book that you had come across and you want to buy that for them. Or if it could be a link to an article that they can find beneficial for them, that may relate to them in some way because you were thinking about them. That's also creating value. Because once you make that connection, now what, right? You need to follow through. People want to know if they can trust you. People want to know if you'll do what you say you'll do and if they really matter to you. So following through sort of, I would say, would be the next step in after you meet someone, you follow through, right? It could be a quick text. Say, hey, I thought this article would benefit you, or hey, I think my acquaintance can benefit your business or project, or the earlier example, like someone's daughter, or someone connected them to their daughter that will help them, push them in the right direction of their career after college. It could be anything, really. A resource, pretty much. A person could be a resource to another person, or it could be a book, a link to an article, a CD, or a podcast. Even nowadays, we don't have CDs, it's podcasts. And I think that's it for follow through. I'm thinking about if I have examples. Okay, I'll give you an example. It's not really my customer service background. I'll just lean into that again. So when I was doing hair, I was a very thorough stylist. So even though I cut the hair, I'm going to go back and take another 5 minutes and make sure I've done things correctly. I haven't missed any spots or missed any hair to where it sticks out. I made sure things were even, things were symmetrical. I would have them look in the mirror. I would even get in front of them and touch their hair, even though it looks like I'm staring at them, which I am, but I'm not. So I would make sure it's even. I would have them look in the mirror and so they can see the back of their hair. So that was me when I was doing hair. So that's follow through as well, like seeing it all the way through the process, seeing all the way through, make sure it's correct and right and that the customer is satisfied. That's one way of, I think, of, going through follow through, because that's the only time I'll see the customer during their appointment. So I have to make sure it's a good visit, that they had a satisfactory time, and that they would come back. I think that's it for follow through. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. So the next chapter is called Your Serve, chapter 18. So your serve means that, okay, so when you have a conversation with someone, right? And obviously, more than likely, they're going to ask you what you do. In this case, you can tell them, right? It's not you pitching, it's the other person asking what you do. And in this case, according to the chapter, you can either talk about a feature, which is mentioning your MacGuffin, which is not recommended, or you can give them a benefit, which is about the other person. So when you do say what you do, you want to serve them something that's going to benefit them, right? So, and in this book, they give you examples, and I'm going to say those in a few moments. But before I do that, the authors mention what conversation is about. Questions such as, what's your name? Where do you live? What's your family like? Why question starts getting deeper and exploring the person's values. What do you do? Why do you live in the area? Stuff like that. And they also mention a pitch is me focused. the salesperson. A serve is them focused, the other person. And so when someone will ask you what you do, these are some ideas that you can use. You can focus on serving them focused, which means what's going to benefit the person you're speaking to or the potential prospect or client, right? And so instead of saying, I'm in the insurance business or I sell leading edge, top of the line skincare products, you would then say, for example, these are examples in the book, I help people protect their families and plan for a healthy financial future, which is for the insurance example. Or I help people's health and confidence through anti-aging technology. Or for one in real estate, instead of saying I'm in real estate, you can say I help people successfully sell their homes and own their dream home, right? We can always, for a stockbroker, for example, if you were a stockbroker, instead of saying I'm a stockbroker, you can say I help people create and manage wealth. And then obviously the other person will be like, oh, how do you do that? Right? And then you can get into the conversation of how you would be able to help them or serve them. Another one for a chiropractor, I help people heal themselves naturally without medication. And someone's going to ask you, how do you do that? And so they got other examples here. I'm not going to say those. And they also say here, and I quote, there's an expression in sales, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, and you can't say the right thing to the wrong person. And so at the end, it mentions that whether or not someone is interested in your MacGuffin or what you have to offer, product or service, it's totally up to the other person, not you. So I think it's okay to, you've reiterated or restated your serving, like about what you do, but it's totally up to the other person. So the ball is in their court, and that's okay. I mean, you've done all that you could do, right? I mean, you weren't pushy, you weren't aggressive, you were understanding and listening and trying to create value. And so, that's the best you could do. You can only do your best, right? So that's the end of this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Hi. So we're going to talk about chapter 19, which is called posture. Now, they talk about two things in the beginning, emotional clarity and emotional discipline. And emotional clarity is understanding that there is a difference between your economic need and your emotional need for this person to be the solution to that economic need. And emotional discipline is your ability to hold on to that clarity and consistently choose your responses to each situation rather than reacting impulsively. And I quote on page 112. And so the second definition, if you were to name it, is called posture. It also means shaking off your doubts and insecurities and stepping into the truth of who you are and the value of what you have to offer. And this is more about like being resilient as well. I think this falls into this chapter because they talk about how what you can control are the actions you take, the words you say, and the thoughts you have, right? And so I'll just dive into the example that they give because it gives a better picture than me explaining or repeating the chapter itself. Before I do that, they say that success does not depend on the other person saying yes, but getting the full benefits of what you have to offer does. So what benefits them, or how can your product or service benefit them? And then the other person makes the conclusion whether or not they want to move forward. And the example that's given in this chapter is there was a actress who turned director, and so later in the years she needed to raise money for her next film project. And so she went to a local bookstore, had a list of like 200 women authors that shared the theme women empowerment. And I think she wrote 4 authors and 3 responded back. And so that some sent a referral, some sent like money, other offered like introductions or referrals. But by doing this, she was able to come up with half her budget. And at the end of the chapter, it states, believing in yourself is the true success because nothing can take that away. So that's called posture, knowing your limit, right? Knowing your ability to hold on to clarity and consistently choose your responses. That's pretty much emotional awareness. But rather than reacting impulsively, you could choose your responses wisely and more calmly. And yeah, I think when I think about customer service, I think a lot of people, a lot of customer service people that are working in customer service, if they're aware, they can build this sort of resilience or what they call emotional discipline, because you'll get upset customers as well. Because if you're a banking, people want to know like how much money they have, like if the deposit went through. It could be really emotional and really could be hostile sometimes over the phone. Hospital personnel or hospital staff can also go through this. They may need emotional discipline because they deal with people that are sick, or maybe emotional people like that are sick as well, mental health facilities, police officers as well, because they have to deal with the public, they have to deal with people on the street. Although this isn't sales, this is like life skill as well, right? So I totally believe that it's a life skill. Even dealing with family members or people that you know personally, having emotional discipline is important, because then you get to decide how you want to respond, knowing very well that you already know how the other person will respond. So it's very similar, as far as sales. I think I'm not in sales yet, but I can only imagine, right? Like listening to them, getting to know them, creating value, following up or following through actually, and serving them. So that's it for now. I will see you in the next video. Bye. In a very real sense, your competition is your best friend. But sometimes people get confused about this and think the correct goal is to destroy your competition. What a tragic error. If you could succeed in destroying all your competitors, you would be raining down destruction on your own field. And I quote on page 118. So this chapter is about the competition is healthy for society in every single field, every single industry. It keeps us on your toes. It raises the bar. It pushes our limits and help make possibilities happen, or helps make dreams and goals happen. The purpose is not to think of your competition as your enemy, but your best friend. When you compliment your competitor, you are demonstrating respect. So I'm paraphrasing the chapter, some of the key points in the chapter here, and I couldn't agree more, And you know how some people say it's saturated, or there's too many people in the field, or whatever the case may be, but there's no one like you. You are different, right? When I was doing hair, there was like 7 of us on the floor when it was a busy store like 10 years ago. And we were all different, even though we had our own way of cutting hair, we were all different characters, different personalities, but there was still room for someone different, more than one stylist. So it goes the same for salespeople. And in the chapter, they gave an example of the competition. So basically, a man was shopping around for a car. So he went to Lexus, BMW, and another brand of car. And so I'm just going to say that the man went to 2 other places and they were like, a Toyota or something like that, or BMW. Like 2 out of the 3 car dealerships were kind of bashing down on the other one. And then one lady was like, yeah, you'll do well with BMW, Lexus, and the other car. BMW, Lexus, and Mercedes. So I think the lady from Lexus was like, yeah, you'll do well with Mercedes and BMW, they're great cars, but I like Lexus personally because blah blah. And so the man that was looking for a car made his decision based on the other 2's reaction, the other 2 dealerships' reaction. So sometimes when you are bashing on a competitor, that makes you look bad. When another person sees you bashing or disrespecting another person in the industry, it makes you look bad. And then it makes the other person look good, the one who's respecting or giving compliments about other people. And it makes perfect sense. And this also goes to show with like how people interact as well. So like in like acquaintance circles or like whatever circle you're in, when you disrespect another person that's not there to another person you're speaking to, it makes you look bad. You don't gain trust, right? So when you compliment or show respect to your competitor, it makes you look respectful to them. It also makes you look confident, successful and safe to the person you're talking to, the buyer or potential prospect or client, whoever you're talking to. And competition should be like a feedback, right? It's your best friend. It gives you kind of feedback. Like, what are other people doing? How can I be better? Right? So I thought this was a very important chapter, and not to compare ourselves too. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks.